Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about like what my reading year has looked like so far, and then I'll talk a little bit about kind of, I guess, what I kind of want it to look like for the remaining year, and maybe starting to get a bit more intentional with some of my reads. So I have my laptop in front of me so I can try and remember all these stats, but so far this year I have read 54 books. I just cannot believe that there was a time in my life where I think at this point I'd be on about 70 or 80 books. I have read, I think, two like 700, nearly 700 pages books this year, but that's not why my reading is slowed down. I think, yeah, weirdly, like, life has picked up in other areas, and yeah, I'm just not, I mean, I know why I'm not reading as much. It's just not as much as commuting. But yeah, I am looking at my StoryGraph stats and maybe I'll put some of them up here. But yeah, I've read 54 books so far this year. My average rating of books this year is something that's just like so shocking to me. It's 3.06. So I'm using StoryGraph because it allows me to do my half ratings and stuff like that. So up until recently, my best book that I'd read this year had been in January. And since then, nothing else had come close to like a 5-star read. And then a couple of weeks ago, so definitely in August, or was it August or was it now September? Wow. Could have been September, I can't remember now. I read my most recent 5-star read. So we have one in the fiction category and one in the non-fiction category. Both were audiobooks, so that's really great to see. But yeah, overall rating is 3.06, and 3 stars is the rating that I've given to most of my books. So we've got 15 books that have 3 stars, and that is closely followed by 4 stars for 11 books. So it is that the majority of the books I am reading are just books that I'm just like, I like these books, but I'm not like completely like, I guess, blown over by them. And sometimes for me, I want my reading to just be taking me to like another place. Like when I read Sunburn, I was like, I love this book so much. I was actually recently talking about it to someone and recommending it to them because I was just like, it's so good. You need to read it. You need to listen to it on audio. And I want to have that kind of like passion and dedication for a book. So I feel like the next 3 months or next 4 months, really, 3.5 months now, going to be about finding like the kind of next 5-star read. I'm not going to put loads of pressure on it, but I'm going to try and be maybe, I don't know though, because I feel like I want to be kind of curated about doing that. But like this recommendation for Sunburn came to me through someone else. I never would have heard about it otherwise. And then the other 5-star book by Brianna Wiest, I just happened to, it was recommended to me on Spotify, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to read one of her other titles. So then I just listened to this one instead because it was a shorter audiobook. So they're not ones that I naturally come across myself. But let us dive into some more stats around some of the books that I've read this year, and I can perhaps talk about some of them as well. Maybe some of the ones that I didn't like. I had to do a battery change, so things are looking slightly different, that is why. But back to the stats and jumping into, yeah, just like how my reading has gone so far this year. So I will actually definitely pop up some of the StoryGraph stats because I do think some of them are quite like nice to just see on the screen, because it will tell you like how many books I've read, but then how many pages and how many hours that translates into, and then things like average time to finish a book. And then you've also got things like page number. So the majority of the books that I read are between 300 to 499 pages. So 62% of all reading that I've done this year has been falls into that category. And then I've read 2 books that have been over 500 pages, and then 15 that have been less than 300. And then I usually have nothing in this really to show in this category, but audiobook length, it varies. Majority books have been between the 8-hour to 16-hour mark, 6 books being that, and then the rest fall into kind of being 16 plus, and then being less than 8 hours long. 16 hours, I feel like that's the Magpie Murders. It's Moonflower Murders. One in the series though. And then we have a fiction non-fiction split. I always used to want to make this kind of half and half, or at least be a bit more skewed towards, less skewed towards fiction. This year I don't care. I haven't found like that many non-fiction reads that I've genuinely been that interested in. So I'm happy with where this is sitting. One that I'm particularly like very happy about is actually the formats one, because I think it's just like a nice little split. I don't know how it compares to like previous years, but like for me, print is always like, I borrow a lot of my books from the library, so most of them are going to be print books. I've never really borrowed audiobooks or digital books, ebooks from the library. I don't plan on doing so. I can't be bothered to figure out the apps that I need it for. And to be honest, if I need to listen to an audiobook, I'll do it via Spotify because I have Spotify Premium. I want to use those hours. And then if it's an ebook, I usually just buy it, or it's like a NetGalley arc. But yeah, so far 6 books read on the Kindle, and then 9 audiobooks listened to, the rest all print. I'm happy with that. I actually plan to increase the audio one a lot more. I definitely feel like I should be listening a lot more to audiobooks, and yeah, perhaps we'll make that a focus for the rest of the year. And then we have this stat, which is most read authors. I think last year this had like a lot of Agatha Christie in it. But my most read authors this year are authors that they're all crime fiction books, so this makes sense. And they are all authors who have books in a series that have been found very easy to read or enjoyed. So for example, Nina Prowse, she does the Maid series, which I think are okay. You know, you just sort of warm to Molly's character, and they're really easy to read, really easy to get through. So I've read 3 so far this year. And then Anthony Horowitz, I've actually only read 1 new book from him this year, which was, I forget the name, The Marble Hall Murders. But I listened to the previous 2 titles via audio because I had nothing else to listen to on audiobook, and I was like, I want to revisit those books, but I don't plan on sitting there and rereading these 500 plus books again. Not that I mind, but yeah, so I consume them via audio, and I will be re-listening, well, I say re-listening, I will rereading the final one, even though I have just read it this year, via audio as well, because it could just be fun. And then the other author who's appeared on here is Benjamin Stevenson, because I have read 2 of his books from the Ernest Cunningham series. So yeah, they're not authors that I would naturally talk about, but it does appear that I have read a lot of their books this year, or at least 3. And then yeah, I'm going to put a little chart here of the number of books, pages, and minutes, because I think it always looks fun. But you'll see from that in June and in August, I read 9 books. So those have been the months where I have read the highest amount of books. I can't really say why that is. Really honestly don't know why that is. But I think those are the months I'm going to dive into a little bit more, and then we'll move on to talking about what I want the rest of the year to look like. So as you'll see on the screen, you'll see the June stats. We've got 9 books, all the other bits of pages and hours listened to and things like that. But I'm going to take a look at what the books were, because I can't even recall what the books were and why I was reading so much that month. Okay, so that month I finished What a Way to Go by Bella Mackie. Losing the Plot, which I had started at the beginning of June. Okay, yeah, finished then. So Thrilled for You, which was an audiobook that I wanted, I took forever to finish listening to. Read one of the We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. I really do enjoy his Thursday Murder Club series, so I wanted to check out what this one was. Read Orbital, very short book, so very easy to get through that one. And then The Maid's Secret, which is by Nina Prowse, one of the authors that I just mentioned earlier. Conversations on Love. I feel like that took me maybe a bit longer to finish than I would like, but I did enjoy it. It did, because it was a real emotional book. If We Were Villains. I think this one took me longer than I would like, because I didn't like reading it. I thought the book, I didn't actually enjoy the book. And then I read All Fools by Miranda July. So yeah, that's quite a range, because I wouldn't say that any of these books are short books. I would definitely say The Maid's Secret, We Solve Murders, and What a Way to Go were books that I could consume very easily, and they were books that I wanted to go back to and would easily be able to dip back into. So I can see why I ended up reading so much that month, because my fiction weeks were kind of easy to get through. So in terms of the format for the month of June, you can see it's split across print, digital and audio, which I'm liking. That's kind of what, ideally that is the split I would like, but most of the time I feel like the split I'm going to see is print and audio. But yeah, my average rating for the month was 2.89 stars, which, it's obviously an average, because you can see there is a 4.5 star book. There is, the majority are 3-star books. But it's these little ones over here, the 1 star and the 2 star, are dragging it down, and then I feel well, that was a shit reading month, but it's realistically not. And then if we look at August, again, 9 books, different pages read, different hours of books listened to, average finish time of 27 days. I believe the previous one was 21 days. I think of all the stats that I hate, I don't hate any of them, but all the stats I'm just the average time to finish a book is the one that makes me feel like I'm such a slow reader. But it is that some books, I will not pick them up for weeks and weeks, and then I'll find a point that I get really into the book, and then I'll finish it off. But most books I do feel like I will finish over a kind of 3 to 4 day period, if not that, under 7 days. And so for August, in terms of our format, again, we've got this nice split of print, digital and audio. And then in terms of star rating, we're at 2.94 stars. Again, not the best. 3 books that I rated 2.5 stars. I'm like, what is going on? So let's just take a look at what those books actually are. Okay, so the first book in August, which is why I'm like so surprised I managed to read so many books in August, is Wellness, which is 607 pages. But I was able to just breeze through this. Like, I don't find long books like to be challenging because of their length. Like, it's the same as reading 2 like, you know, 300-page books. So that's never off-putting to me. But yeah, I gave this a 3.5 stars. I read The Wedding People finally. I had requested it since March. It was a really nice read, so glad I read that. I read a book which is just an outlier for me, which is Stalked by the Kraken. Not only is this book romance, and that's not a genre I read very much of, this is like smutty creature sex romance. My neighbour is doing some reading research and said this wasn't too bad, like check it out. And I was just like, I didn't even know that this was a niche within the genre, that I need to see what the peoples are doing. And I saw, and yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. I did give it 2.5 stars, but that is not even due to the creature sex. It was just more due with the unrealisticness of it for me. But yeah, glad I tried something new. Don't think I would read from that niche again, but I'm glad I tried it. And then a book I finished was On Our Best Behaviour. This took me so long to finish. I'm so glad that I finished it. Ended up giving it 3 stars, all fine. Songs of My Grandmother, which is like a poetry collection, but also got some prose. Finding Grace, one of the most bizarre books I have ever read. The Rachel Incident, enjoyed that. And then The Herbalist, I read this on my Kindle. This was actually recommended through a podcast someone was talking about, and I was like, well, sounds a bit interesting. And then finished listening to an audiobook, which is listening to Ayahuasca. So yeah, again, some short books in there that were quite easy for me to just like breeze through. So I imagine this is why I ended up reading 9 books that month. But yeah, now I just feel like my reading, like I say, not very high ratings, like, you know, and I really want to be shifting it more to that kind of 4.5 5-star category. And I'm not really sure how I do that. The way I kind of choose my reading is just based on kind of like what's on my to read list on Goodreads. I still find Goodreads to be the place where I like to log what books I want to read. Both websites, I think, between Goodreads and StoryGraph, I'm not sure that I get the best recommendations from them, but I still use Goodreads as a way to log that, and StoryGraph is my way of just where I log my book reading in like detail, because I'm sometimes always trying to hit that streak. But yes, I wouldn't say that I would like to be more curated with my reads. I just would like to find another like 1 or 2 5-star reads before the end of the year. Like, I really want books that are going to pull from me like emotionally, and just make me think, wow. Just like what Sunburn did with the kind of like yearning of that young love, being teenagers and things like that. I think it's just a beautiful, wonderful like queer love story. I've actually just decided to look at this, only all the books that I've plugged into StoryGraph, so it's not my full kind of like Goodreads reading list. But my average rating for books is 3.7 stars anyway. But I'm looking at the 5-star books and just trying to think of like, well, you know, what is there a common theme between these books, so I can try and pick like my next 5-star read. And I'll just give you an example of some of the ones that I have really, really loved. The first one being, one of the first ones being Against the Loveless World, which I read at the end of 2023 and loved it so much. I did not expect that at all. Butter, Honey, Pig Bread, I could actually reread that. That could be something that I could reread, because I have it. Dawn by Octavia E. Butler, Granite Heart, which is a poetry collection. Useless Magic, Saga Volume 9, Volume 3 with the graphic novels. The Republic of Motherhood, which is a poetry collection, which I absolutely adore. And yeah, a lot of these are kind of just non-fiction books as well. So The Body Keeps the Score, Becoming the One, The Life That's Waiting, which is a recent 5-star read. So they all really do vary. And you've got Small World by Caleb Azuma Nelson. Like, they vary, you know? And I don't know how I'm going to find that next like 5-star read, but I'm going to try my hardest to find it. And yeah, so this second section was a bit of a blab for no reason, because I have no process in place basically to try and find my next 5-star read, but I'm going to make that my aim, and I will figure that out as I go along. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video about my reading year so far. I will do an end of the year video talking about like kind of you know, my favourite books of the year so far. I was going to do a mid-year check-in one, but then when I looked, I'd literally had one 5-star read, and I was like, I've already gushed about this book already, so like, what's the point? So yeah, definitely end of year. I hope I will have some gems to share with you of like my favourites of 2025. But until then, I will see you in another video. Bye.